Rocket Lab, a U.S. New England company, is heading back into orbit again, this time with a device that ensures it doesn't add to the growing amount of space junk already in orbit. This certainly gives us a lot to talk about, such as to what extent this expedition is possible. That's why in today's video we'll be going on a fun and exciting journey to reveal why Rocket Lab's plans to launch satellites aimed at reducing space junk and how possible and realistic their mission is. The mission. Much to the delight of we spaceheads, Rocket Lab, a global leader in space, known for building rockets and spacecraft that make it easier to get to orbit and do amazing things there, announced that it would launch a satellite to test space junk removal technologies for Aurora Propulsion Technologies, a Finnish company dedicated to the sustainable use of space. Ironically, Rocket Lab was accused of space littering earlier this year when it launched the Humanity Star. However, they recently admitted that keeping the amount of junk in space low is extremely vital to Rocket Lab's business model, which is to put more things into space much quicker than the older, more established space companies do. Now, the mission, dubbed It's Business Time, will see a rocket lift off from their famous Launch Complex 1 on New Zealand's Mahia Peninsula as part of the mission scheduled in Q4 2021. All of which is super exciting, as they've also announced an Electron will deploy Aurora Sat-1 to low Earth orbit to demonstrate the company's proprietary propulsion devices and plasma brakes that provide efficient propulsion and deorbiting capabilities for small satellites. Let's not also forget that the recently signed launch agreement provides Aurora with an accelerated on-ramp to space at a critical phase in the company's growth and technology development. Speed to space is crucial in the development of next-generation technologies like Aurora's, made possible by the dedicated team behind Electron that delivers rapid and responsive launch for satellite operators who want to move quickly. With Rocket Lab founder and CEO Peter Beck, we're delighted to be working with Aurora to enable new and innovative systems with the safe and sustainable use of space in mind. Removing space junk. As a lot of us already know, space junk or orbital debris simply refers to a human-generated object in space that's no longer functional. Between you and me, this spans through the range of something as little as a piece of foil to a broken-off, rundown satellite dish or whatever. The Department of Defense keeps track of more than 27,000 pieces of orbital debris or space junk through their surveillance network (SSN) sensors. Still, much more debris is too small to be tracked but large enough to threaten human spaceflight and robotic missions to the near-Earth space environment. Since both the orbital debris and spacecraft are traveling at extremely high speeds, approximately 15,700 miles an hour in low Earth orbit, any impact of even a tiny piece of orbital debris with a spacecraft could definitely result in big problems. With all that, the rising population of space debris increases the potential danger to all space vehicles, including to the International Space Station and other spacecraft with humans aboard, such as SpaceX's Crew Dragon. We also need to consider that astronauts are also at terrible risk in the International Space Station and also during their extravehicular activities like spacewalks. Thankfully, their suits can protect them from extremely small particles, and most of the ISS shields protect them from objects with sizes up to 1 centimeter in diameter. To protect them from larger objects, however, the space station must navigate out of the way, or the astronauts can use the auxiliary Suez spacecraft as a lifeboat. This is why the launch with Rocket Lab later this year is the opportunity for the company to demonstrate to all of us, fans and competitors alike, its technology in space. Aurora Propulsion Technologies. We know it'll be impossible to talk about the wonders of Rocket Lab's mission to rid outer space of orbital junk without talking about the goodness of Aurora Propulsion Technologies. Here's a bit of what we know so far. Aurora Propulsion Technologies have their priorities set at ensuring the sustainable use of space whilst also prolonging the useful lifespan of satellites. By enabling the effective and prompt implementation of satellite position and orientation, they help to ensure the safe and reliable deorbiting of satellites at the end of their useful life. The long-term mission, however, is deep space exploration with micro-satellite-sized probes using a revolutionary means of propulsion, an electric sail. Aurora and Rocket Lab. Aurora Propulsion Technologies, having signed on with Rocket Lab to send its inaugural Aurora Sat-1 CubeSat into low Earth orbit aboard an Electron rocket rideshare mission in the fourth quarter of this year, gave out some enticing details. Aurora Sat-1 will have 2 modules. First module will contain 6 Ristojet thrusters designed to help CubeSats quickly detumble and adjust their attitude control of the satellite's orientation. Aurora will also test its plasma brakes, which use an electronically charged micro tether to generate drag for satellite deorbiting. I know at this time a lot of us are probably wondering, is that all? I mean, there has to be a lot more, right? Remember earlier we said that both the debris and spacecraft were traveling at speeds of approximately 15,700 miles per hour, and because of that, even a tiny paint fleck can damage spacecraft or satellites. Well, you'll probably be glad to know that the CubeSat, which is roughly the size of your average home toaster, will test the company's water-based propellant and its system that claims to help control a satellite's altitude, or right it if it starts to tumble. This is just amazing in our books. The plasma brake will, however, need to be installed on satellites prior to launch. Aurora CEO Roop Takala told TechCrunch prepared for deorbiting is increasingly becoming a requirement for flight permits. However, we're discussing with partners the possibility of in-orbit installation of plasma brakes to existing space junk. Putting it all together, we're super excited about the recently signed launch agreement between Rocket Lab and Aurora, and we're even more excited to tell you why. It's simply because the launch agreement provides Aurora with an accelerated on-ramp to space at a critical phase in the company's growth as well as technology development. Originally, Aurora was supposed to launch on a different rocket and orbital transfer vehicle. Rocket Lab's rapid and streamlined space access, combined with the ability of Electron's kick stage to precisely deliver payloads to their unique orbits, were decisive factors in Aurora selecting Rocket Lab as the launch provider for their mission. To explain it all, Aurora CEO Roop Takala said, "After earlier launch plans fell through, we greatly value Rocket Lab's ability to offer a launch in a flight window starting just 3 months from our originally planned launch date. The quick response Rocket Lab offered allows us to prove our technologies this year and keep on track with our development plans." Considering that the Aurora Sat-1 launch agreement follows a collection of a whole lot of other announced satellites flying aboard Electron, this unleashes a new level of excitement for us. The other unannounced satellites include the first ever wooden satellite, WISA Woodsat, which was developed by the Finnish company Arctic Astronautics. The expedition is expected to follow on their 3 accurately timed back-to-back Electron launches in August and September for none other than Black Sky Global, and the capstone mission to the moon in support of NASA's Artemis program, making the magic happen. Amidst all our pretty much obvious excitement, we're glad to inform you that this business time launch will be Rocket Lab's first commercial launch, if it's a success. Unfortunately, the launch window was delayed last month after several technical issues were discovered in a motor controller. The delays has, however, allowed more customers to put stuff on board, says Rocket Lab founder Peter Beck. Aurora CEO Roop Takala said, "After earlier launch plans fell through, we greatly value Rocket Lab's ability to offer a launch in a flight window starting just 3 months from our originally planned launch date. The quick response Rocket Lab offers us allows us to prove our technologies this year, keep on track with our development plans." In light of all this, we believe that this exciting detail will come in handy for those of us who love paying attention to detail. Now, one of the last-minute payloads changed on the satellite is the NABEO drag sail, which Rocket Lab says was created to passively deorbit inactive small satellites. How interesting is that? In the words of Peter Beck, the small sail is an ultra-thin membrane that can be coiled up tightly within a spacecraft and then deployed once the satellite reaches the end of its orbital lifespan. The reflective panels unfold to 2.5 square meters to increase the spacecraft's surface area, causing it to experience greater drag and pull the satellite back into the Earth's atmosphere, enabling much faster deorbiting and reducing the amount of space junk. We're all well aware of the fact that satellites brought down from orbit will typically burn up on a re-entry to the atmosphere. To prevent this, Aurora Sat-1 will also be testing the functionality and durability of its deployable plasma brakes. How so? You might be asking. It's basically because satellites combine a very small tether with charged particles in space, which generate drag, which in turn can be used to slow down spacecraft and pull them out of orbit when they reach the end of their usable life. The beauty in it all. Aurora proudly maintains its position as part of a small number of startups that have emerged over the past few years whose technology promises to help solve a tricky problem that, for most of us, would rather not consider: space junk. Now, let's all take a minute to silently imagine, in awe, just how easy and stress-free navigating space would be for our astronauts, space teams or satellites, and rockets once the problem of interference from space junk and orbital space is gone for good. To be honest, doesn't it feel good knowing space travel will be easier, safer, and open to innumerable possibilities? That's why we need to stay rooting collectively for the success of Rocket Lab's launch. That's it, guys. We've come to the end of today's video. What about Rocket Lab's mission to end space junk excites you the most? Leave a comment down below and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.